So, I was reading or watching The Hunger Games, and it occurred to me that Suzanne Collins is so good at writing what I call microconcepts. I don't know that there's a real term for them, that is my term for them, but I think they can be really great things to use in your writing to help kind of lift up and take it to the next level, which is what I'm going to talk about today, writing microconcepts. Okay, so basically what I think of as a micro concept is what it sounds like. It's a concept, but it's small, right? It's not a huge, big concept of the story. Just little concepts that maybe come up in a minor point of the story. They can be about a minor character, or maybe a bit of like indirect plot or a snip of detail, but they are really cool ideas or just great ideas that come up in passing. They may be only like one sentence long or a couple of paragraphs, but whatever it is, they're small and they kind of pack a punch. This is what I feel like we focus so much on the big concepts. This is one of those little details that I feel like takes good writing, like up to exceptional writing, like top notch. So for kind of in contrast, I would say like a macro concept. This is going to be like an overall concept in a story. It might be like the concept of the story itself, like in the Hunger Games, right? The idea that kids have to fight each other to the death in a reality TV show. That is a macro concept. In the trilogy, Peeta becomes exactly what he feared was a character, In the trilogy, right? Peeta becomes exactly what he feared. And I see that as kind of a character macro concept because it kind of happens through the series. Macro concepts are usually like what come to mind when we talk about concepts in a story. We're thinking of the big picture, the overarching ideas. But these concepts appear in small aspects too. So micro concepts are like, I did a video a while back about picking the right details, and we could pick some kind of, when we're writing, we can pick kind of a generic concept for something small in our story, or we can pick something fresh and interesting. And I'm going to give you guys some examples. And like I said, I think Suzanne Collins is so good at this. So in the Hunger Games, it's loaded with like these killer micro concepts, and I'm like not even kidding. If you just open it to just about any page and start reading, you'll begin finding like these great tiny little ideas, and she's a master at them. But one of my favorite parts in the whole series is this ingenious micro concept where Peeta tells Caesar on live television that Katniss is pregnant. And like it was a great idea on Collins's part. But it wasn't that important to the story or plot, right? It didn't really change much in the story. It could have been left out of the story, and the story itself wouldn't have changed that much. Everything would have been fine. But having it in there was so awesome. And just that little moment, that little idea took that scene to a whole new level. If you take it out, scene would have been fine, but not as entertaining, not as good. So the more killer micro concepts you can come up with, the richer your scenes and the more addicting your story will become, because even the parts that aren't vital to the story are freaking interesting. Even the quote slow parts are cool. So you can have great micro concepts with your characters. And I love that Suzanne Collins, she took the traditional, like, the old wise mentor character trope, and flipped part of it, making Haymitch a drunk, at least at the beginning, right? And he's like a lowlife. And, like, that's her protagonist mentor. Usually we think of mentors as, like, Gandalf, Yoda, Dumbledore, right? But Katniss's mentor is, like, the equivalent of a drunk. And he's so drunk he falls off the stage when the reader meets him. And, like, that is a freaking good idea. Like, see how much more entertaining that one little characteristic made that whole scene and, like, brings to the story. It brings more tension. It creates more anticipation. It's like, how can Katniss win with a drunk mentor? So Collins could have just, like, left Haymitch as, like, a more traditional mentor character, and it probably would have been fine for the story. His backstory would have still been sad. He'd still be a good character. But having that one sweet, nice micro concept made Haymitch a richer character. That concept of having him drunk took his characterization to like a new level. And it's not this huge part of the book that alters the plot or anything drastic. I mean, sure, like the fact that he's drunk, it relates to his backstory. But this backstory would have been fine without it. But like, it's this cool little concept that took it up just a notch. Some of the war tactics in Mockingjay, right? Some of those are great concepts too. You can have great micro concepts in a dialogue exchange. So like, I love In the Order of the Phoenix movie, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Sirius and Harry are like fighting Death Eaters, and Harry takes a shot, and Sirius says, "Nice one, James." Right? It was just like this little idea that shows, like what's mentioned in the book, that Sirius sometimes confuses Harry for his father, which is another great little concept in and of itself. And I love in the first Hobbit movie when the dwarves are like in Rivendell and they can't stand the elves' music, and one of the dwarves actually like stuffs his hearing piece with like a cloth to drown out the noise. It's small, but it's funny. So great micro concepts, they pull all the little crevices and corners of a story up from the main floor to the penthouse. They can take your story from like being great to being awesome. We focus so much like on the big macro concepts in a story, obviously, but the micro concepts are important too. So the next time you are writing a tidbit of your story that, quote, doesn't really matter, stop and brainstorm ways to take it to the next level. How can you take that tiny little idea and make it more powerful, even if it's just something in passing? And that's your guys' writing tip for now. So get my latest writing tips at septembercfox.com, and please subscribe. Thank you.